There is something which is not much talked about, and that is the arising of spiritual ego, which I believe is one of the most destructive and devastating forms of ego. And this is something which I have witnessed within myself. When I started my spiritual journey, I had some experiences. And I thought that just because I had those experiences, perhaps there was something special about me, that there was something unique, and that the divinity chose me. But you see, this can become such a huge trap, because after that, I started reading scriptures. And the more you read, you get this impression that more knowledge you acquire, that somehow you're becoming much better than the others. So you keep reading, keep acquiring knowledge. You think, okay, let me read this scripture, that scripture, let me listen to this teacher, that teacher. And then somehow I am spiritually evolving. That is the notion. And that sort of gives rise to an ego, where you start thinking that you've become somehow bigger than the other person. And at that time, I started teaching a few people, and those teaching were absolutely utopian. So there was this idea that you can do something, that you can practice a certain kind of sadhana, a practice which can give you everlasting bliss. So I would say things like that your true nature is Satchit Ananda, permanent bliss. And I said it in this manner, that somehow that this knowledge that you are the consciousness is going to put you above others, because that is the way I thought about myself, that somehow because I have this knowledge I am above others, that there's something special about me. And then again, the life punches you in the gut, and then you know that you are nothing, you're absolutely nothing. This, that is why I don't read scriptures. Now I'm not saying that scriptures are all bad or anything like that, but it's like there is too much information given in the scriptures, and some of it is extremely confusing. If you keep reading over and over again, you can induce a sort of hypnosis, where you start believing yourself, you start imagining yourself to be special. You think that you've become some intermediary that has direct connection with God, and associating yourself in connection with God, you start preaching and telling people how they should live their lives, what they should do, what they should not do. And then, as Jiddu Krishnamurti said, that the guru maintains the disciple and disciple sustains the guru. The moment I saw through and through it of what I was becoming, it became apparent that I was deluding myself. That this was something which was quite toxic. Therefore, I don't think that there is any concept or any teaching that can put you above the forces of life, that can make you completely resilient to the forces of life. The forces of nature are too strong. They're too strong. And a human being is a weak entity. Human being is a flawed entity. Human being lives with biases. Nobody is free from biases. We all have biases. And somehow the acceptance of oneself, the way one is, brings a certain amount of relief. Now, it doesn't avoid the pain in the moment, but it does eliminate suffering to quite some extent. But still, there can be some cases where you may have certain situations where the life just completely overturns everything. You may get into a fight with someone, and you may end up having deep hatred and resentment for them because of what happened. But the thing is, that event does not become your story. So you accept whatever happens in the moment, but nothing becomes your story, and nothing propagates as suffering in horizontal time. You see, these days there are a lot of people in the marketplace. We have sort of created this guru marketplace where there are people who are telling you how to live your life without knowing anything about you, just generally throwing information, whatever they know. Now, I don't get into the debate of what is pseudoscience or what is real science or what is this or what is that, because today the science as we know it might become pseudoscience in the future. But I know one thing, that your ability to critically think matters. And nobody can tell you how to live your life, because every human being is unique. Not special, but definitely unique. So the life as you have experienced through your filters is completely unique than how I have experienced life through my filters. Therefore, I cannot recommend a method, a technique to eliminate your problems. Only you will come up with your own unique method. My job is only to point you in the direction, and the direction is inwards. It does not mean that we don't take external help. Sometimes external help is also needed. But the real solution is self-knowledge. But if you think that by knowing about this non-duality, or any teaching for that matter, that somehow you can become completely resilient to the forces of life, and that you can handle everything, then that can be a deception. Because human beings are weak. You know why human beings are weak? I made a video a couple of days back where I said that you are not weak. And now I'm saying that you are weak. Why? Because you think that there is an agency within you that is somehow in charge of things around. When you view it from that perspective, this entity, me, is the most fragile entity. It is limited because it is brought about by a conceptual thought. But if you imagine, if you not imagine, if you see things from an absolute perspective, talking from an absolute perspective, I know we cannot talk from an absolute perspective, but let's just say, because that is all we can do with language. If you see from that perspective, you're not weak. I don't know if this makes sense. But the limited entity, the entitification me, cannot do anything to become, to overcome all afflictions that life brings. So life will bring pain and life will bring pleasure. All this entity can do is accept whatever life brings. And sometimes even that the entity cannot accept. Sometimes even that happens. But as you go deeper and deeper, what you realize is that this entity, me, is not as solid as it appears to be. This entity is always in search for the best method, for the best practice, for the best guru that can somehow give the perfect mantra or the perfect technique to eliminate all suffering. And that is where the trap of spiritual ego comes in. That after spending some time with the guru, after getting little bit of knowledge from here and there, we feel that somehow we have got that perfect method, perfect recipe. And then we start teaching others, thinking that now we have got it. But if you see carefully, there are no problems, because any problem cannot stand isolated. The root of every problem is the conceptual thought me, the me that sees things with a biased perspective. And of course, as I said, that there is a spiritual marketplace out there where people are spending lots of money. There are expensive retreats. There's so much business going on in the name of spirituality. While spirituality simply means turning inwards, the complete turn of the I thought to itself. That is all there is to spirituality. Of course, it is just my concept. I'm not saying that is the reality. But you have to see from your experience what it is. Therefore, blindly following any teaching or any scripture without personal experience can become a great hindrance to the real insight or real awakening. And if you see carefully, there are some people who talk a lot. I mean, there are gurus that have hours of lectures on YouTube, but then their actions don't match their words. Sometimes it is not clear as to what they are saying, and it is very easy to throw these idealistic views on other people. Like, for example, if I say that it is a great virtue to become desireless, but I very well know that the entity that is listening to this itself is a desire. It is very easy to say that ego is the root of all problems, therefore, kill the ego. But then the question is, who is saying that? Isn't it the ego that thinks about killing the ego? Now, a lot of such idealistic talks are there. They are there in the scriptures. You hear them from gurus. And gurus, a lot of marketing is being done by their teams. It is really surprising. But then again, as I said, that the ego's nature is blindness. Ego cannot see its own nature, what it's doing. Now, as far as I am concerned, I don't consider myself to be a teacher or guru or any sort of authority on the subject. I simply come here, I share my views, I share my concepts, and I give you the freedom to choose. You can listen to the concept and then you can decide whether that concept matches your life's experience or not. If it matches your life experience, by all means, take it. Otherwise, just throw it in the trash. My concept does not have to be your reality. Your reality, your truth will only come from within you. But the problem is when we rely on a guru, it is okay to listen to masters, to teachers. I'm not saying that all masters and teachers are frauds. That is not the intention. That is not what I'm trying to say. All I'm saying is that what they are saying, investigate it. Don't abandon your critical thinking. Let it happen. Let all self-reflection happen. And match everything with your life's experience. And then you will notice that there will be no contradiction. It is the contradiction which creates pain. It is the dissonance which creates pain. Because when you study something which is very idealistic, which is very utopian, and then you see that something else is happening on the other side, that, the tension between these two opposing forces, that creates suffering. So don't believe anything blindly. Even Buddha said that. And I believe that I'm not saying that scriptures are bad or what these teachers talk about, these gurus talk about is entirely bad. No, it's not like that. But it's just that if you just believe someone without investigating, you will remain in the contradiction. You will remain confused. And sometimes, for some unscrupulous elements, it is in their advantage to keep you confused. Because then you remain their disciple and somehow it serves them. I remember when I was reading all these scriptures, these teachings, my initial impulse was that now I'm someone more, someone greater, and that I have this knowledge. And now, with this knowledge, I can change people. But I did not even once bother to see what is happening within me, that what qualifies me to change the world. Because I was ridden with contradictions. I have witnessed the rise of spiritual ego within me. But yes, life threw me on the ground and it showed me my place, that this is what you are. And at some point, when this sense of identification or me got dissolved, it became quite apparent to me that the problems that we think are problems are actually not there. Because all problems are an extension of this identification, this sense of personal identification. And once it is seen, once this sense of personal identification is seen for what it is, there is no need, one has to put no effort to dissolve it. It just gets dropped on its own. Because the more you try to dissolve your ego through effort, it is your ego only that thinks that. So we are always on this quest that we should do something. We should do something to attain enlightenment or self-realization of some kind. And then we will sit in permanent bliss without any worries, without any troubles. And that is a very that's a very appealing prospect. Because enlightenment is the fantasy of people all over the world. But the question is that can a human being be completely enlightened? What exactly is enlightenment? This word has never made sense to me. I think of enlightenment as a fantasy. The human entity has always been flawed and it will remain flawed. Even with little understanding I have, I'm still a flawed entity. I still make mistakes. And I deliberately say over and over again that I am not a guru. You know why? That's a strategy. It's because that gives me chance to own my mistakes. And when I own my mistakes, my conflict is gone. Even if a conflict comes up in the moment, it is gone. For example, if I react sometimes, which I do, then if I think that I'm a guru, and if I've built all those notions about myself, that I am so and so, that I am infallible, then it will be very difficult for me to see what's going on. But without those notions, without that layer of conditioning, I can witness what's happening. And in that moment, I can see that perhaps I reacted. And the thing is that even when I react, maybe if I end up hurting someone, I can still apologize to them. I can tell them that, okay, I made a mistake. I'm sorry. I will not repeat it again. And then I'm simply free with it. There is no dialogue in my mind which says that I should not have done that. Why did I do that? Why did I react? Why did I show anger, this and that? Because I understand that it is human conditioning to be that way. The forces of nature are too strong. Sometimes we cannot help but react. Sometimes a reaction is warranted. There are situations when some reaction is required. If somebody attacks you out of the blue, you will react, won't you? That is human nature. And in that moment, it will be uncomfortable. Even that is accepted. So if I think that I am a guru that is completely resilient to everything, even things that happen in the moment, and then I react, then I create such a toxic state for myself later on when I think about it. Then I'll say, oh, I'm a guru. How did I react? Why did I do that? I should not have done that. So you see, I'm free from all those. So it gives me the liberty to make mistakes and own my mistakes. And we all make mistakes. But you see, the word mistake is not taken too seriously because it is understood. There is an understanding behind that there is no individual that is making a mistake. Things are simply happening. Things are being labeled as right and wrong or mistakes. And accordingly, consequences are also happening. But they are not happening to any individual. This understanding liberates. It is complete freedom. Therefore, this whole question about how I should or should not be, this completely dissolves. There is no contradiction, in my case, about being material or spiritual. Because I don't see the two as separate. When I require money for certain things, I work. I simply ask for money. I sell products on my website. I sell books. But I don't think that making money or making yourself comfortable in life is apart from spirituality. I think it's all a part of the same. And if you are brought up in a certain environment where you are accustomed to certain comforts, I don't see anything wrong in that. But the spiritual ego may tell you that no, you don't deserve this comforts, that you are lacking something. The spiritual ego may tell you that you should aspire for something which is beyond. It can just create a fanciful object in front of you. And then your spiritual ego will also tell you to go into the forest and meditate in the caves and leave your family, leave your friends, change your environment, this and that. And of course, some people do that. But you see, living alone in the caves and meditating there, what will it teach you? Yes, you may experience silence for some time, but then there will be other concerns of health, safety. Jungle is not an easy place to live in. Mountain life is hard, it is tough. You know this word vairagya. We don't understand the real meaning of it because we think that I have to do something to attain vairagya. Vairag means dispassion. Now, dispassion naturally comes from understanding, but dispassion is not about denying yourself basic needs. It's just that you live with a certain understanding. You accept what comes to you, you don't reject it. You don't think that you are above life or that there is something which can take you beyond life. You simply accept life the way it is. And that is what dispassion means. It comes from an understanding, from acceptance, not from the ego's wishful thinking of becoming, desireless. It happens to people that when you listen to spiritual discourses, somehow you come to this conclusion that I must give away all my possessions because these are binding me, they're creating problems. And then move to the mountains or a monastery, there you sit and you start meditating. But then your mind is actually following the same pattern. Your mind starts thinking about God. Now, earlier you were running after material pleasures. Now you're running after an idea of God, an image of God. That is simply your mind's creation. You still think that you will achieve something by attaining God. And people on the spiritual path have this tendency. There is something called spiritual bypassing. I'll talk about it in another video because this is already getting long. So all in all, what I'm trying to say is that once you accept yourself the way you are, then there is never a need to change the other person. Because the transformation automatically happens. Because you become the change that you desire in others. And I think that's something wonderful. But the moment you think that it is your guru's, your teacher's job, you see, the problem is that we treat gurus like crutches. We think that guru will just hold my hand and, take me to the other side and give me some euphoric state, and then I will permanently sit in that blissful state. But that's not what the guru does. The guru simply points you in the direction. It simply says that you have to turn inwards. And I'm using the word guru. I think guru is not an accurate word. I will just say that it is a pointer. Nobody has the power to show you the truth. The truth has to come from your personal experience, and which stands the test of time. So don't come to an abrupt conclusion. Investigate and reflect on everything, and then see what happens. The moment you come to abrupt conclusions, you will be disappointed.